Hello dear friends, this is your personal English coach Professor DC, and in this video I will be explaining a profound poem that will keep you thinking. The name of the poem, as you can clearly see on my screen, is Growing Old. This is written by Matthew Arnold. Do you want to know two fun facts about Matthew Arnold? Let me tell you. Number 1. Dover Beach, the poem that you might have studied or which may be upcoming in your syllabus, is also written by Matthew Arnold. Secondly, Matthew Arnold was a school inspector for 35 long years. Surprised? I am too. Now, coming back to the title. From the title, it is very clear that the poet has some observations about the natural process of growing old. Perhaps this poem was written when the poet was in his mid-40s. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt that you are growing? Do you feel any change in your body or your thinking? So what happens when you age? With age, as you already know, the bones tend to shrink in size and density, especially after your 40s, weakening them and making them more susceptible to fracture. You might even become a bit shorter. Muscles generally lose strength, endurance, and flexibility. Now, these are the factors that can affect your coordination, stability, and balance. In this poem here, the same has been explained by Matthew Arnold in 7 stanzas, having 5 lines each. The speaker of this poem narrates everything in first person, which means the speaker is Arnold himself. Unlike other poems, the words do not rhyme, which means there is no rhyming scheme. But the words per line, or I should say the length of the lines, do match from stanza to stanza. So we can say that the poet has taken care of how many syllables to use in each line of a particular stanza. Not only that, I have put line numbers so that I can refer to a particular line when I am explaining. And so, you can also relate to that line very well. Alright, on my screen you can see the title of the poem, the name of the poet, and different stanzas. Now notice that I have put a heading to each stanza because I thought it's important that I tell you in a nutshell what a particular stanza meant. For example, stanza 1 is talking about loss of beauty, stanza 2 is talking about loss of physical strength and feelings in the limbs, so on and so forth. I've given the stanza number, stanza heading. Next, I've given line numbers. As I said, when I'm explaining, I will refer to those line numbers and so that you can also read and relate. And most importantly, I have put word meanings beside those difficult words which you see on my screen: luster, forego, bloom, limb, stiffer, strung. What you can do is, while I am explaining, you can pause my video and note it down in your textbook. Alternatively, you can also send me an email and ask for a PDF and I will send you the same. I'm sure that before trying to understand any poem, the first thought that comes up to your mind is, what is this poem all about? So, the famous Victorian poet, critic, and some people also call him a prophet, Matthew Arnold, wrote a meditative poem, which is on my screen, as called Growing Old, in which he muses on the meaning of aging and attempts to understand what exactly old age implies. As I already told you, Dover Beach, another intriguing poem by Arnold, has some interpretation available here as well. So, how are we going to understand this poem? First, I'm going to read out the stanza. You can note down the difficult words. Next, I will tell you the exact meaning of each line, followed by a short summary so that just after reading a particular stanza, you would not have to revise. Without wasting any further time, let's get started. Stanza number 1. Stanza number 1 talks about the loss of physical beauty. Let's read out line number 1 to 5. What is it to grow old? Is it to lose the glory of form, the luster of the eye? Is it for beauty to forego? Yes, but not this alone. Let's understand the meaning of these lines. So Arnold begins by posing a question or a query. He asks, what is it to grow old? Now this is the poem's main idea, or we can say the central theme. Does aging result in the loss of one's physical form and the transformation of imposing youth into old age's weakness? Or some people also call it frailty. To be frail means to be weak. Or is it the fading of one's youthful radiance with time? When we are young, as you know, when one is young, our eyes sparkle with eagerness because we expect or we anticipate the delights and adventures that life will bring. But as one ages and matures, this sparkle, this twinkle, this gleam becomes duller and duller and duller, both as a result of his diminished vitality and his failing vision. According to Arnold, growing older causes a person's physical health and vision to deteriorate, as well as his or her passion and sense of adventure from childhood also goes away. So what, according to poet, goes away with age? A person's health, a person's vision, passion, sense of adventure, which a person has dreamt of in his or her childhood, it goes on diminishing. The poet describes beauty as a young woman with lovely flowers and a flower crown on her head, which is nothing but line number 4. So, he has described beauty as a young woman with a lovely flower crown on her head, as he claims that beauty grows older. She must forego her breath, losing some of the appeal of her youth. As one becomes older, he no longer seems to have the bright charm of youth. Arnold concludes this stanza by responding to the query posed in the very first line by saying that even if old age entails all of the aforementioned effects, it also has a lot more ramifications, which is explained in the upcoming stanzas. So a quick summary of stanza 1 can be something like this. The poem begins with a central question that will be contemplated, discussed and answered throughout the rest of the poem. As we read the poem, it is crucial to come back to this question again and again. The second question or query elaborates on the first. I'm referring to line number 2, which is an elaboration of the question in line number 1, which is obviously, what is it to grow old? Now, this query raises the issue of aging's physical decline, of a person's physical decline. Whether growing old refers to losing one's beautiful physical form or the luster in the eyes. The poem's 4th and 5th lines consist of a second query and its resolution. This stanza's final question or a final query is whether aging implies that beauty will lose her breadth as a whole. One's physical attractiveness, which is represented by a breadth bestowed by beauty herself, will deteriorate and one will stop receiving it. This poem's final phrase stipulates that yes is the answer to all the questions above. And not only all of the above, but there is a lot more to aging. Let's move on to stanza number 2. Stanza number 2 is all about loss of physical strength and feeling in limbs. Is it to feel our strength, not our bloom only, but our strength decay? Is it to feel each limb grow stiffer, every function less exact, each nerve more loosely strung? Let's understand the meaning. So, here in this stanza, the poet expands his reflection from the first and claims that in addition to the deterioration of our bodily characteristics and appearance, growing older also causes a reduction in our strength. Our nerves become brittle and our joints stiff as we age, crippling us. We lose some of our functionality and find it difficult to perform even the most fundamental tasks. While one is able to accomplish anything on their own when they are young, they become incapable as they become older. Man begins to lose his youthful energy and power as time wears him down, both in terms of his physical and cerebral abilities. I hope you are noting down the difficult words as well, friends. Let us have a quick short summary. So, what's happening here in the second stanza? More queries about the subject of losing the body's vigor and functionality open the second stanza of this poem. The body's strength will deteriorate along with its bloom, its beauty. This stanza queries whether the experience of one's strength ebbing away from the body is what aging is all about. The following lines add an extra information and detail to this notion, which is line number 8, 9 and 10. Line number 8, 9 and 10 is talking about how particular limbs become stiff or tight and lose exactness of the function. These limbs were nicely strung before, but now they are loosely strung, or we can say they are weak. No organ or bodily portion is as robust, sensitive, or capable as once it was. Stanza number 3. Stanza number 3 is all about unfulfilled expectations from youth. Of course, when we are in our 20s or maybe just after 15 years old, we dream so much. We will do this, we will do that, we will climb a mountain, we will go on treks, we will swim, we will open up a new company, we will have a startup, so on and so forth. You have abundant expectations and ambitions while you're young. In fact, while you are studying this poem right now, you must be having so many dreams. Some of them you would be able to accomplish, while some of them will stay unfulfilled. That's what the poet is talking about here. Line number 11 to 15. Yes, this and more, but not, it is not what in youth we dreamed it would be. It is not to have our life mellowed and softened as with sunset glow, a golden day's decline. Now here in the third stanza, Arnold sighs in agony and observes that none of the effects of aging that he learned about match his youthful conception of old age. He had no idea when he was younger that his age would result in all of the things he just said, plus even more. He was saddened to learn that his expectations have not been met. He had hoped that old age would provide him a sense of warmth and contentment from a life well spent. He had the idea that, similar to how the setting sun makes a day that is about to finish feel peaceful and content, old age would do the same for him. However, his expectations are not realized, and he does not see old age to be as mellowed and softened as he had expected. A quick recap. So this stanza discusses the lack of optimism for the future and disappointment of growing older and not getting what one had hoped for in their youth. The affirmations are confirmed in the first line, just as they are at the end of the first stanza, but the speaker makes sure to emphasize that they are not only the things that aging is about. And after that, the speaker discusses the expectations and how they were not met. He claims that it is not to have our life mellowed and softened as with sunset glow, which means with age, life does not get cozier and simpler and easier. the tranquility of a sun is not really present as one might anticipate. A bright day's decline is not how one's life ends. Moving on to stanza number 4. Stanza number 4 is about deep nostalgia. Let's read it out, line number 16 to 20. It is not to see the world as from a height, with rapt prophetic eyes, and heart profoundly stirred, and weep and feel the fullness of the past. The years that are no more. So what is stanza number 4 talking about? What does it mean? Here, furthermore, he asserts that growing older does not even result in deeper comprehension of the universe. Growing older not necessarily causes one to become profoundly philosophical and filled to the brim with nostalgia for the days gone by. He also won't get a divine look that would allow him to see the universe in a new way. When he was younger, he believed that as he became older, he would reflect on the good old times and remember lovingly the years that are no more, his heart overflowing with memories of the past. So the meaning of fourth stanza is as simple as that. A quick recap can be something like this. So here the fourth stanza expands on the theme. What is the theme? The theme is the same old question. What is growing old? So it expands on the theme and provides more details about what death is actually like. It is not to see the world as from a height with rapt prophetic eyes and heart profoundly stirred. Line number 16, 17 and 18, which means there is no height of wisdom one can attain in which they may look over the universe and their own life and perceive the truth with a full emotive heart, as it is stated in the first 3 lines of the fourth stanza. The satisfaction of living a life well lived does not last into old age. There isn't even a fullness of the past, the speaker claims, to feel and grieve over gladly and warmly. Moving on to stanza number 5. Let's read out line number 21 to 25. Stanza number 5 is all about imprisoned in pain. The speaker says, "It is to spend long days and not once feel that we were ever young. It is to add immured in the hot prison of the present, month to month with weary pain." So what is the message that the speaker or the poet wants to convey with stanza number 5? He says, instead of everything he had anticipated, old age brought lengthy days and little to no memory of the delight of youth. Growing older is like being trapped in a never-ending cycle of suffering and fatigue. Without the happy memories he anticipated as a child, months after months go by in the heated prison of the present. Man feels trapped inside his own body without any signs of escape, overcome by the sense of growing old and fatigued. Keep noting down the meanings of difficult words. Immured means to enclose or confine. Weary, as you already know, is very tired. You are weary if you're worked out in the gym a lot. That is being weary. Alright, what is a quick summary of stanza number 5? The feeling that old age is all one has ever known replaces the sentimental thinking back on life. It never ends and encompasses everything. Months and months are depicted as passing with tired ache, while the speaker describes feeling entrapped in the present as a heated cage. The feeling of being stuck in one's own tired body when experiencing old age seems impossible to avoid. Stanza number 6. Line number 26 to 30. Stanza 6 is all about being partially numb. Let's read out. It is to suffer this and feel but half, and feebly what we feel. deep in our hidden heart, festers the dull remembrance of a change, but no emotion, none. So, here the incapacity to experience the feeling that arises in one's heart goes hand in hand with this anguish. According to Arnold, this does not imply that feelings disappear as one ages. Rather, they are simply not as strong as they once were. We will always hold the memories of our youth and the awareness of the changes brought on by aging close to our hearts. However, they will be incredibly faint and devoid of any feelings that we may have previously connected with them. When we get older, things that once moved us no longer appear to have any impact on us. Quick summary of stanza number 6 is: not all of these things actually happen as one might anticipate. Instead, one must endure these agonizing months. The speaker acknowledges that there are still feelings, but they are significantly reduced. Compared to those they encountered as children, they are weak. If one knows that, and it's written in line number 28, if one knows that deep in our heart there are changing experiences and emotions, but one cannot access such emotions, one can be satisfied. When one looks for what used to move them, there is simply nothing there. I believe this is the final stanza, yes, and the stanza is all about cheers to the old spirit, line number 31 to 35. It is last stage of all, when we are frozen up within and quite the phantom of ourselves, to hear the world applaud the hollow ghost which blamed the living man. Now, this poem ends on a sad note, or we can say a depressing note, because the poet returns to his original question of what exactly old age means and responds by saying that growing old means to lament the lost spirit and sentiments of one's youth while being confined within the feeble remains of one's decaying body, at the same time as the world outside is praising and celebrating one's accomplishments and life. So friends, isn't it funny? Just imagine you are, let's say, 60 to 65 years old, or 70 years old, or maybe even more, 80 years old, and you are lying on the bed, unable to move, unable to hear or see, but the world outside is celebrating your accomplishments. That's what the poet is trying to explain. So a quick summary can be something like this: the last stage of all, when one is no longer even capable of moving, is described in the last stanza or the final stanza. Line number 32 and 33. When we are frozen up within and quite the phantom of ourselves, when a person is nearing the end of their life, they are no longer able to care for themselves physically, and the entire person or the entire image of themselves they once had is imprisoned inside their body. They are unable to communicate or provide for themselves. These final two lines of this poem, Growing Old, which read something like, to hear the world applaud the hollow ghost which blamed the living man. Now, for these lines, it is crucial to go back to the poem's opening query, which is, what is it to grow old? The speaker comes to the conclusion that it is difficult to hear one's loved ones and the rest of the world praise one's life and all that they had accomplished, while on the inside, the empty ghost that was once alive with emotion and spirit hates the living body it now occupies. In their own tired, painful jail, one turns against their own body. Alright, I hope all the stanzas are very clear to you. I'll just give you a quick analysis of the poem. So, as you know, the poem comprises 7 stanzas of 5 lines each and uses a free verse to portray the poet's feeling rather than adhering to any set rhyme or meter. As with most of his poetries, Arnold speaks for himself as he expresses his idea and reflection about aging and humanity. Although this poem is largely introspective, there are some emotional outbursts as well. Particularly, what is it in any cases? You're right, it is distress. The poem has a very gloomy tone, means sad tone, and it is infused with Arnold's trademark cynicism. So Arnold was very well known for including cynicism in all his poems. Don't know the meaning? Look it up. The love of nature that Arnold had is also evident in this piece. He makes a beautiful analogy by comparing aging to the decay of golden day. In this poem, the poet effectively uses rhetorical questions to increase the impact of his message. He also makes powerful metaphorical comparisons, such as aging body being like a prison or even a phantom or a ghost. Overall, the poem provides an intriguing look into Arnold's perspective on old age, which is significantly different from that of his contemporaries, who were more upbeat about aging and death, and who felt there might be life after that. So, dear friends, I hope you have understood this poem very well. If you still have any questions or doubts, feel free to mention them in the comment section. Normally, I try to resolve all the questions, but if not, of course, all of the people who have subscribed to this channel will answer your question. I will ask them to answer your questions. If there are any topics or lessons or chapters or poems that you want me to explain and take a deep dive, I will be more than happy to upload a video on the same. Thank you for watching. I wish you all the green lights. Good luck.